grade math. Today our lesson is add and subtract fractions. I'm on page 217. I'm going to work 217 with you. I'm going to do odds. Your job will be to do 217, 218, evens. Our objective is to add and subtract fractions and mixed numbers. Your iExcel assignment is a 4th grade skill, angles. It's Z as in zebra, 1, acute, obtuse, right and straight angles. Reviewing, that's what you're going to be doing throughout this week. Let's look at number 1 on page 217. I've got 6 and 1 7. And they want me to add 2 1/2. Remember, when I'm adding and subtracting fractions, I've got to have a common denominator. 2 is an even number, 7 is not, so I've got to get me 2. An even number, for me, I'm going to multiply 7 times 2. 2 times 7 is 14, so 1 times 7 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14, so 1 times 2 is 2. I'm adding these. I've got 8 and 9, 14. I think you're going to find that this lesson this week, we're reviewing. We're going to spend several times this week reviewing. At the end of the week, you're going to have 2 review sheets that you're going to need to work on. Let's look at number 3. I've got 2 1/3 plus 9 and 2, 12. Again, I've got to get a common denominator. I know that 3 is a factor of 12. 3 times 4 is 12, so 1 times 4 is 4. 9 and 2 12ths. I'm going to add these up. I've got 2 plus 9, 11. 4 plus 2 is 6 over 12. I also know I've got to reduce. I know that 6 is the factor of 12, so this becomes 11 and 1/2. All right? If I would have gone just by the philosophy that this is an even number and 2, that's where it would have put me. Again, that's not in lowest terms. Try to think of your factors, guys, and that will help you a lot throughout this concept. All right, that was 1 and 3. Let's go to number 5. All right, 5 says 7 3/4 minus 1 5/16. I know that 4 is a factor of 16, so I'm going to convert this to 16ths. 4 times 4 is 16, so 3 times 4 is 12. 1 5/16. 7 minus 1 is 6. 12 minus 5 is 7. 16ths. 7's a prime number. It's not a factor of 16, so I'm in lowest terms. All right, the last one in this group is 7. 7 1/2. And we're subtracting 3 2/3. All right, I've got to get my common denominator. I know that 2 times 3 is 6, so I'm going to make that my common denominator. 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6, 1 times 3 is 3. I still have to go one more step because I cannot take 4 from 3. I'm going to have to borrow 1 from the 7, make him 6, add 6 because that's my denominator. So this becomes 9 6. 3 4 6. Now I can subtract. Don't forget, guys, it's the same as when you were adding and subtracting, before. 4 can't go from 3. I've got to borrow and regroup. We know that anytime a numerator and denominator, that equals 1. That's how I borrow 1, and that becomes 6. I add the numerator to the other numerator. 6 plus 3 is 9. There I can now subtract 3 5/6. All right. Let's look. That was number 7, so let's look at number 9. I've got 3/6 minus 1/2. I've got to give them a common denominator. I know that 2 is a factor of 6. So to make that 6, 2 times 3 is 6, so 3 times 1 is 3. Do you see that, guys? Even though now I'm going horizontal instead of vertical, still the same concept. We've got to get that common denominator. All right, 11. I've got 4 minus 1/2. I've got to get me a fraction here, so that becomes 3 and 2 over 2 minus 1/2, 3 1/2. All right, and the last one, 5 minus 1/2 becomes 4, 2 over 2 minus 1/2. This equals 5. That's all I'm doing there, guys. I'm just converting that so that I can subtract. I don't have a fraction there. I need a fraction there to subtract. So I've got 4 and 1/2. All right, in the next group, they're asking you to read a chart to answer the questions. So it says, we've got the chart for walkathon, the students who walked and how many laps they walked. Who walked the farthest in the walkathon? Well, if I look at the whole number, I see 2 with the number 8, Addie and Lily. All right, but Addie walked 8 1/4, and Lily walked 8 1/8. To find that out, I've got to give them a common denominator. 4 is a factor of 8. Make that 8. 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 2. So that means Addie walked farther. And then how many more laps did the girls walk than the boys? That means I've got to add up how many laps the girls walked, which I just had that Addie was 8 2/8, and Lily was 1 1/8, or 8 1/8, I'm sorry. Now I can add, because we already had the common denominator, so 16 3/8 is the girls. The boys walked 7 3/4 and 6 1/4. I can add those up. 4 over 4 and 13. That equals 1, 14. That means the girls walked more than the boys. All right, they're asking you to add and subtract and solve these problems by giving a common denominator. Same concept, reading a graph. All right, the next one I want to work with you is 19, completing a table. The rule is minus 2/5. So in the X column and the Y column, I've got 4/5, 1 2/5. And they want me to subtract 2/5 from each of these. So in this, I've got 2/5. Remember, I've got to convert this to 5 over 5. 3/5. All right, so all you have to do is take what's in the X column, subtract 2/5, and that will give you your Y column. All right, one more. The last one is we're adding 1/4 to our X and our Y. And the first one, we've got 3/4. We've got 1/2. I should move those over. And we've got 1/4. Let me move this 3/4 over so I can add on this side. All right, if we add 1/4 to this guy, we get 4 over 4, which equals 1. If we add 1/4 to this guy, I've got to make him common denominator. 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2, so now I can add 2 plus 1 is 3/4. Then we're going to add 1/4, 2/4. I've got even numbers, I've got to reduce. All right, so make them proper. This one we converted to 1 because 4/4 is 1. This one's fine. I can't reduce it anymore, but this one we know they're both even numbers, so I can divide them by 2. All right, and let's see, 23. It says color 1/2. You have to figure out, first off, how many blocks are on here. And I'm not going to draw this, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10, half of 10 is 5. That means you're going to color 5 blocks. All right, guys, there's your lesson. I just did odds, 217. You're going to finish the evens on page 217 and 218. You're going to complete your IXL skill, which is angles, 4th grade, Z1, and you're going to be looking at the different types of angles. All right, guys, good luck.